Sean McGinty
on BBC Radio Lancashire.
So you've heard about rats and sinking ships, but there's a different kind of rat problem involving water in Preston. Well, it's the duck pond at Moor Park, and it's being overrun with them. Some of them very large and frightening. Members of the public feeding the ducks are being blamed. The rats steal the food. But the local council says it's put down lots of poison and bait, but they're not working. Now, independent councillor Terry Cartwright wants the area cordoned off so the rats can be killed. So how big a problem can rats be? Joined in the studio now by Tim Cooke, who's the owner of Wigan Environmental Services. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you very much for coming in. This is not a new problem, is it? Rats hanging around kind of duck ponds?
No, it's not, and it is getting worse, and it's all down to basically modern living. There's more and more takeaways, and there's more and more litter on the floor, and rats will eat whatever is lying around.
Yeah, I mean, it was mentioned in an email, actually, from the council, from Preston Council, saying pizzas, chicken carcasses, rice.
Anything.
Well, I mean, I'm scratching my head wondering what people are thinking when they throw this kind of stuff.
Well, it's the youth or the young ones today. I mean, if you go into any town centre after a night out, you've seen them, they're tanked up, they go into a burger or a kebab shop, they eat half of it and the rest of it slung over the shoulder and they just walk home. And in Wigan, in the King Street area, it's absolute disgrace. You go up on 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, it's just strewn. And the rats are having free pickings, because it is basically a free meal.
Is this more difficult to deal with because it's near or on water in any way?
Well, it's an isolated area, so there's no predators. If they're over on an island and there's no dogs, no cats, nothing else can get to them, then they've just got a free ratio to breed. And it depends what poison they're using, and it depends how often they're using it. I mean, I would imagine they're going to have to go over there on a regular weekly basis and tip it down by the bucket load.
Well, that's what bothers me. And, you know, they've sort of talked about they've poisoned the area, and we're going to talk to Councillor Robert Boswell in just a moment, who's responsible for this. But what can you use? I mean, you know, you've got dogs, you've got kids, you've got all sorts of, you know, like you say, drunk people lying around. You can't... What poison can you use?
I don't know the area itself, but I had a similar one in a park in Wigan a few years ago now, where there was a lake and there was 3 little islands, and we had to get the rowing boat out and go onto the boat. Because there was wildfowl and birds and all kinds, you still have to use the locked boxes, which is like you put the bait inside, rodents can in, nothing else can get in. It's pet-proof, child-proof. And after a few weeks, we got on top of the problem, but you've got to make regular weekly visits and put enough poison. If you don't put enough poison down, that's where the resistance can kick in and rats then become immune to the poison.
Let's quickly now go to Councillor Robert Boswell. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
We've just been listening there to Tim Cooke, who's you know, rat catcher, environmental services technician, whatever you want to call you. This is a real problem you've got around that pond, isn't it?
I think the rat catcher, if he wants to be known by that, has hit the nail on the head, really. I mean, it's people putting food down, and there's takeaways nearby. They go to the takeaways, they eat the takeaways. It's a nice secluded spot. They sit in there and they leave half of it. And you've also got the people who come and think they're doing philanthropy. They think they're feeding the ducks, and they leave vast amounts of edible food around, and the rats come and eat this. And the rats have also got a secluded area they can retreat to. So, I mean, there's I can't really add much to what's already been said, because that sums up the problem that we've got here. And the idea that you can go culling them by some sort of shooting exercise at night, I just find ludicrous, because the rats will come back. They will retreat and then return. You can't end the problem by culling this thing. It's the nature of the fact that there is food around that the public leave that's causing the problem.
It's a very dangerous situation, though, Councillor Boswell.
Well, it certainly is, and that's why we are putting poison down. I'm not as expert as the other gentleman on poison, but our officers say they're doing their best. But the rats are bright enough to go for the pizzas or the chicken or whatever's left around and ignore the poison.
I think the shooting, and I understand what you're saying, but I think you've got to really cross every tick every box on this. I mean, the shooting will reduce the numbers, thus, you know, lowering the numbers, because, I mean, the way rats produce the litter, I mean, 6 to 8 weeks, and you've got a number of 6 to 8 in a litter, you're talking a vast amount of rats in a very short space of time. So if you do manage to knock them down with a gun, you're reducing the numbers, and it's using every method possible. Use the gun, use the poison, get the numbers down.
Well, that might be a fair point, but I think we'll have to look at it, and I think that is a long-term the last solution, rather than going around shooting animals on a park that's a public park, and it's difficult to cut it off because it's got several entrances to it. I mean, I wouldn't like to take that responsibility, but we could.
Isn't that excuse me, sorry to cut across you, Councillor Boswell. That's your responsibility, isn't it? That is you. That's you that's in the frame here. You need to take responsibility for it.
Well, yes, of course, but I'm just saying that this particular serpentine on Deepdale has got several entrances. It's very, very difficult to isolate at any time.
So what, we're just going to leave rats running around and the public and children?
Well, in the long term, we're hoping to get Heritage Lottery funding money, and that will refurbish the area completely, and that will solve the problem. But that's going to be a year or two down the line. In the short term, we're looking at using poison and continuing to use poison. We're looking at trying to educate people not to put litter and rubbish down. And if the problem continues, then we might look at the culling idea, but that is particularly in that area. You've got to virtually fence off the whole of the road area because people can just climb over onto it. It backs onto a major road, and it would be very, very difficult to do that.
Maybe you're just going to have to sign up the area and just advise the public not to feed and just put warning signs up.
Well, as I say, there are several signs up already, but people just perhaps literacy rates they can't read.
I know it's staffing levels as well with the council, but if somebody just patrols and just keeps an eye on it, because it's the vitamin K1, which is natural product. It's found in nuts and bread and stuff like that. That is the antidote to the poison.
Right.
I mean, these anticoagulants, they thin the blood.
Yeah.
You're going off the body mass of a rat. And if they get enough vitamin K1, again, they're becoming resistant to the poison. Yeah. So their offspring then, they're not touching these, what they call second generation poisons. Your first generation was your warfarin. And they all became resistant to that, more or less. There is third generation poisons, but they have not been regulated, they've not been approved. Until they come out, this problem is only going to get worse.
I'm sure it is, and it is a major problem we've got, and it's an area for kids that kids go down to. Ironically, I was brought up near there. It used to be a paddling pool down there, so I know it well. We are doing what we can. We are trying to educate the public. We do patrol it. I mean, I had an email from somebody saying that every morning at 7:30 someone goes and puts 3 loaves down. And it's a regular thing for this lady to do.
Yeah.
Well, I've had it myself in these beauty spots when people come in with a bag full of breadcrumbs. They think they're cuddly creatures, but they don't understand.
When will it get to the point where you feel, Councillor Boswell, that you have to fence this area off? Because it sounds like it's quite dangerous. These are big rats, and all right, they might be sort of fat and happy on the food that's left for them by locals, but at some point there'll be a problem.
It will be a problem. I'll take advice of the officers on that and see what they say about that. We think it is containable at the moment. Though there are, I go down there quite regularly, and they are around, but it is containable at the moment. We would prefer to cut off the supply of food than have a cull of an evening.
Okay, what's the problem with the cull?
Well, as I said, it's very difficult to cut off the area, and I don't particularly think they would solve it long term, because I think they would just come back, because they're coming from other parts of the park as well. It's a massive park, Moor Park, and they are coming from right round the park, and I would be reluctant to do that only as a last resort.
Okay, look. Sorry,
I'm just going to say, and another basic thing is just make sure that the bins are emptied regularly.
Yes. That's right. I mean, people seem to be blind when it comes. They can't. They're blind when it comes to reading, and they're blind when it comes because they put it 6 inches away from the bin when the bin's empty.
Exactly.
You can have all the empty bins you want, and like you say, the food is all round the bin.
Because there's a smell there. There's a scent, though, so they will be attracted to the smell.
Yeah, I mean, people should just take their rubbish home as well. But anyway.
Well, I'm sure we'll come back to that subject, Councillor Boswell. Good for you to both talk to each other. I hope.
Thank you.
I hope that was interesting for you both. Thank you, Councillor Boswell, and thank you very much, Tim Cooke, who's the owner of Wigan Environmental Services.